Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Hour, a show where twice a week I throw a little chaos into Star Trek and talk about a random episode. Today's episode, and my name's the Dead Man. You didn't know that. Uh, so I bought some reading glasses today because for the past 5 years, my eyesight. Well, once I turned 40, there you go. That should give you so. Once I turned 40, my eyesight started to go, and I had to read things like, like this, and it just makes it easier to read my notes because I already have chicken scratch. But in order to kind of see clearly, I have to be like this. So I might take them off at one point. Uh, but yeah, I finally broke down and got them just because I was so sick of I've got books and comic book, like graphic novels and comic books and stuff that I just can't read because, I physically can't read them because I can't see the text. It's too small. Plus, when I look on my phone, it's hard to read that too. So I just got so sick of holding things at a distance. So, there we are. I think they look good. I mean, they were cheapo. Got them from the grocery store, cheapo. But it definitely improves. I mean, it makes things so much easier to read. Okay, so anyway, today's episode is Voyager, Season 7, Episode 11, Shattered. And of course, that makes me think of that Rolling Stones song, Shattered. So the teaser starts off with Naomi Wildman, and Icheb in the cargo bay, and they're putting together a puzzle, jigsaw puzzle, and they're kind of talking, and all of a sudden Chakotay walks in, and he Icheb is saying, please don't tell anybody, don't tell Seven that I'm in here with Naomi. I'm supposed to be doing something else, some kind of test or something, or studying something. And Chakotay's grabs this bottle of wine, and it's actually cider, and he's like, well, I won't tell if you don't tell anybody where I store this cider, because it's like a rare handmade real cider. It's not replicated or anything like that. And Icheb tells him of a better spot to hide it because Neelix doesn't do the inventory in that one particular spot because it gives him the creeps or the heebie-jeebies or something like that. And so then he goes to visit Janeway in her quarters, and they're about to have dinner together. And I don't think it's anything romantic. Later on towards the end, they try to have this romantic thing with Chakotay and Seven, which I thought was stupid. And it didn't work and went nowhere. Just like Worf and Deanna Troi, didn't work, went nowhere. And of course, Voyager never got really to do a movie or anything like that. And of course, later on in Picard, the Picard series, Seven's all of a sudden a lesbian. And people say, oh, well, there's bisexual people and blah, blah, blah. Well, there's no indication in the 4 years of Voyager that she was on, or 3 years, that she's bisexual. So, yeah, you could say that, but where's the evidence of that? It's just people want to put modern politics into and retroactively insert modern politics into old shows. You know, it's irritating. So they're about to have dinner and he pours this cider, which I'm assuming is basically like wine, but it's alcoholic cider or something. Um, all of a sudden the bridge or the ship gets shaky, and so there's some kind of what do they say they do the some kind of thing, which there's a compilation video of like all the times in Star Trek where they say it's some kind of something, they go, it's a some kind of gravimetric surge. So there's your some kind of. And the engineering needs help, so Chakotay needs to go to engineering, and then Janeway goes to the bridge, and you see this big red cloud, Hey, it's either going to be a green cloud, a red cloud, or a blue cloud. That's Star Trek, or maybe sometimes a yellow one. They love their clouds. Even in Discovery, they love their clouds and clouds in space. So the cloud that like zaps there's like a lightning surge or whatever, and Chakotay gets hurt, and B'Elanna is like, emergency beam to the bridge or to sick bay. So then that's your teaser. Get your theme, credits, so on. So Chakotay wakes up in sick bay, and the doctor tells him that his body was like in temporal flux. So he explains, you have the liver of a 80-year-old and the heart of a 20-year-old, and something along those lines. But he's like, don't worry, I came up with a serum, and he calls it a chronoton infested serum. And so if you've been watching Star Trek, chronotons indicate time related particles. So he has this serum, and the doctor asks so he needs to go back to engineering, and so Chakotay explains that or he needs to go back to engineering, and doctor's complaining that there's people, he wasn't told about this situation, and what if there's people injured on the ship? And Chakotay's like, what about your mobile emitter? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm stuck here on the sick bay. So Chakotay goes to the bridge, and the way people are dressed, the way Janeway is dressed, she has her hair up like in the first season, and he's going to tell her about this situation, and this is the time like before they've made it into the Delta Quadrant. So they're chasing the Marquis at this time. So she knows who he is, but she thinks he's a Marquis, and she doesn't trust him. He tries to he's kind of confused. He's kind of like doesn't know what's going on, and then she orders him to the brig. So 2 security officers go with him escort him to the turbo lift. They get in the turbo lift, and as the turbo lift is going down, the 2 security officers disappear. And there's like this little ripple effect. And So then he walks into engineering, and Seska's there. And I forget the actress's name. Something Anne Hackett, or I forget her name. But I've seen this episode quite a few times, fairly recently, and when I see her as Cardassian with her hair down, I think she looks Martha Hackett. I knew it. I knew it'd come to me. I think she looks pretty attractive, but I think because she's also plays a Bajoran, and I almost said Banjoran. They they build banjos in space. Banjoran. They play bluegrass music all throughout the quadrant. Those damn Banjorans getting together with the fiddleists, playing "Oh Brother," playing "Man of Constant Sorrow," which Odo can't stand that song. Okay, anyway, I think I see people out in the chat, and I will get to you in a bit. What was I saying? So when she plays a Bajoran, I think she usually has her hair up and is like more attractive in the sense that she doesn't have like the scales and shit, but I think she looks better with her hair down, I guess. So when she's a Cardassian, she looks better that way. And when she's playing a Bajoran, she's too nice. I wish Seska. I wish they should have kept her, honestly, and had her show up a little more often. But it's good that they brought her back, and so she's in engineering. And this is a time when she had taken over the ship and teamed up with the fucking... I hate this. I just watched this episode. The Kazon. But as you can see, I'm getting old. And the mind is like it's loading. The loading screen is going. So Chakotay kind of tricks her and makes her think that he's come to take back the ship and all this stuff, and it's like, oh, it's over on this console over there, and then turns around and grabs like the phaser and escapes up the ladder. That's a classic Trek move where it's like, here, let me just show you this, and then they turn around and punch them, and so then he sees that basically when he moves through time, because he's got that serum, he can move throughout the whole ship, and everybody else is kind of has to stay where they're at. So if you're on the bridge, you can't go too far. If you're in engineering, you can't go too far, or you'll just disappear into presumably nothingness. I don't know, but they don't really explain that. But so he goes back to sick bay and explains that to the doctor, and the doctor wants to know more about the mobile emitter, and he's basically like, I don't have time to tell you that. And kind of basically just shrugs it off and then ignores him, which is what people do to the doctor all the time, huh? So he asks the doctor to make more serum because he's gonna need help, like getting the ship back in order. And since I do see a lot of comments out there, I'm gonna stop and pause and take a look, see what's going on. I do see a lot of comments out there. I'm gonna stop and pause and take a look, see what's going on. Okay, so we got a bunch of people. We got a good crowd. We have DJ Play Nice, good evening, salute, and thanks for hosting tonight. We have Gavin Blackburn saying hello. Darren M's here, nice. Yeah, nice. Everybody's kind of greeting each other. Bajorans are known for play badass bluegrass. Yeah. Oh. All right. Back to the episode. Let's see if I can find my spot. And if you came in a little later, I got these glasses because for the past 5-6 years, once I turned like 40, my eyesight went bad, and I have to hold things at a distance like this. And I finally got sick of it. I mean, I've been putting it off and putting it off, putting it off and putting it off, and finally got sick of it because I have like comic books and stuff that I'd like to read but can't physically read them. So and it makes it easier to read my notes because I have chicken scratch notes, and it's helps the flow a little bit. So he goes, okay, so back to sick bay. He's like, I'm gonna need help. So then he goes back to the bridge and tries to confront Janeway again. And he's telling her things like, first he tells her like something like that with research people would know about her, and then he tells her, and then we see this in like time travel stories all the time where they're like, you told me this story one time about your dad and how he took you fishing, and you almost fell into the river, and he saved you, and you guys hugged it out and had a big cry and a laugh, and then at the end of the night had some beers and told jokes all night, and then the next morning caught a big fish. Something that's just something I just pulled out of my ass, right? But that happens in time travel stories where they tell them like a personal story so they'll believe them. So he does that with her. And so she's like, okay, come to my ready room. And then signals the security guy because Tuvok's not there. He's with the Marquis at this point because this is prior to going to the Delta Quadrant. He signals the security guy to come with her. And she's wants to do like a scan of this serum and all this stuff, and they don't have time for that. And she's like, for all I know, it's poison. And he like grabs her and he's like, yeah, it is poison, and step back, and takes her hostage. They go down the corridor, out of the bridge, down a corridor to a point where he's in another part of the timeline. And then the security officer sees like the little ripple thing and steps back, and he's like, okay, I can't go this farther. And he tells the other security guys, don't go past this bulkhead. So he has her hostage and explains, that this really is happening, that there's parts of the ship that are part of different time in different times in the 7 years that they've been on Voyager, and that he becomes her first officer, and he's like, I just need you to trust me. And she's like, well, you're holding something to my head, you're holding me hostage, So he lets her go, and they proceed to. They have to go to, and here's the word. Here's the word again, folks. If DJ Plain Ice, Darren M out there, you know that I have trouble with this word, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Astrometrics. I said it. I did it. I didn't say astromech, like an astromech droid. See, now I can't say even. Now I can't even say droid. They have to go to the astrometrics lab, and she's like, "We don't have one," and that's he's like, "Well, we do now." Harry Kim helped build it, and you're gonna find out that Harry Kim is a valuable member of the team. So they get there, and it's Naomi Wildman and Icheb, all grown up, and they explain that Janeway and Chakotay are supposed to be dead. They died 17 years ago. So in this section of the ship, it's been like 17 years since this anomaly happened. And she, Janeway mentions that she has an Ensign Wildman on her crew, and Naomi's like, "That's my mom." And this Icheb actor it's not the same actor, it's an older actor, and I'm wondering if that's the same guy that they put in Picard. And I didn't look it up, I should have. That would have been a nice little neat factoid. But I didn't. So, and when I review these episodes, it's usually about an hour, or it's usually around 6 p.m. And then I have an hour to just kind of chill, and I'm watching like Mystery Science Theater or something on Pluto TV or whatever. I really should take that time to find out little tidbits of information like that. You know, when I first started, I said I wasn't going to say, "Oh, the writer was this guy, and he also wrote for this show," and blah blah blah, and you know, like you would have Twilight Zone writers that would write for Star Trek or whatever. And I don't know that I'm going to do that, but if there's something that I'm curious about, like, for example, the Icheb actor, you know, I should look that up, and then I can tell you guys, and that'll be like a little interesting factoid. I don't know if it was or not, but I repeat what I've said before, that they did Icheb wrong in Picard, and Alex Kurtzman cannot be forgiven for that. I liked Icheb. I don't know what other people thought about him, but I liked him. He was a good comedy relief. He was good with Seven, Jerry Ryan. Like they played off of each other really good. So screw Alex Kurtzman. And then Icheb tells them that there's like 37 different like time sections in the ship, and so they have to, and they call it a chronokinetic surge. Chronokinetic surge, okay? So time surge with kinetic energy. But they don't know how to fix it, and none of them are like really experts on like time travel. The best expert would be 709, which that makes me think just now in Endgame, when older Janeway wanted to go back to the past, why didn't she get 709 to do it, to help her? But anyway, that's a little side thing. But in this timeline, that Icheb's in 709 is like dead or something, and she's not there. So they have to go find her, and so they go back to the cargo bay, and there's a bunch of Borg walking around and there's a bunch of Borg, those receptacles or whatever they're called. And Janeway's like, "What the hell? What's up with this?" And Chakotay is telling them that there was a time where they collaborated with the Borg, and that was I'm presuming he's talking about when they were fighting species 8472. So they find, well, Seven pops out, and she's like, "What's going on with this ship?" So she obviously knows something's wrong, and she's back to her like Borgified state, and they come up with a plan that they're going to inject the gel packs, the gel packs that are in the ship, that the organic gel packs that are part of the circuitry and stuff. They're gonna inject that with serum, and Seven tells them that it would be more efficient if she were to change them into Borg, and they could do it more efficiently that way. And Janeway's like, no, thank you. I'll take my way. So then they go down the corridor, and you see like that from I think it's the first season, the giant virus that infects the ship and it's like flying around attacking people. And she's like, "What is that?" And Chakotay's like, "Oh, it's a giant virus." And she keeps asking all these questions, about what this is and that is, and he's, trying to answer them without giving too much details. And you can tell that she's like, doesn't like this situation at all. And, she is talking to Chakotay in the turbo lift, and she's like, coming up with this idea of like, what if I were to make it to where we don't go into the Delta Quadrant at all? We just go back to my time before going into the Delta Quadrant and change it like that. And he halts the turbo lift. And I always like it when they do that. There's somebody's going to say something important, some sort of a speech or whatever. And he's trying to explain to her that, she's helped a lot of people along the way. People that wouldn't have had that help if she wasn't around, like Tom Paris and Neelix and Cass and Naomi Wildman, would never have been born, or stuff like that. Seven, she would have never gotten out of the Borg and been rescued from the Borg and gotten her humanity back, or trying to get her humanity back. And he says to her that she once told him, Starfleet captains don't choose their missions, the missions choose them. And I thought that was a good line. If you think about Kirk and dealing with the Klingons and having to deal with Gorkon and the whole Kittimer thing, and getting over his sort of prejudice against Klingons, and thinking that he doesn't trust Klingons and he'll never be able to trust them, type of thing. And you think about other situations where Picard being, assimilated by the Borg, and how that changes his perspective on life, and Cisco being the emissary. And so he has to balance between being the emissary and being, a Starfleet captain in charge of, or commander. He starts off as commander, but the captain in charge of Deep Space Nine, and how he has to deal with the Bajorans or the Banjoans, to bring that joke back around. So it's a good line. It's a good line. I wrote it down so I could specifically quote it out. So then they get to a section of the ship where it's like the Captain Proton section, and Dr. Chaotica, Tom's, his holodeck play or whatever, based off of like 1930s or 50s serials or whatever. It's supposed to be like Flash Gordon-y. So they're looking for this panel so they can inject the gel, and they get caught by Dr. Chaotica's henchmen, and they tie him to the bed or to the table, and he recognizes her as Arachnia, the Queen of the Spiders, which it's called. That episode is called Bride of Chaotica. If you haven't seen it, it's an excellent episode. I hope to do a review of it one day. And in that one, Janeway has this black dress, and she looks good. Like, she's kind of sexy in that dress. So he thinks she's in that episode. In that prior episode, she had like tricked him into doing something, and so he thinks that she's there to trick him again or whatever. And Janeway's like asking Chakotay, he's like, how do you get out of these situations? And he's like, well, the best thing to do is just play along. So he kind of gets her to play along, and she does the Bride of Chaotica thing, the Arachnia thing, and starts talking to him like she's Arachnia. And she's like, oh, it was foolish of me to try to trick you, and I realized that, and blah, blah, and Chakotay's like, there's aliens from the 8th dimension, and Chaotica says, oh, don't be a fool, there's only 5 dimensions or something. And she's like, well, if you don't believe me, there's this panel back there, see what they've done to your lair, or whatever, lab, or whatever it's called. So he looks, and there's that panel that they're trying to get to, and she's like, inject this into the panel and you'll undo what the aliens have done. So in a sense, she did trick him again. So gotcha. So they get out of there, and they run into a section of the ship where it's B'Elanna, and she's still Marquis. So this is the point where they are now stranded in the Delta Quadrant, but haven't quite joined as the crew. And she's all mad and pissed off. Like I said, she's always pissed off. They can't not make her piss off. I get it. She's half Klingon, or a quarter Klingon or something. But it does get old after a while. And so it's nice to have that Muse episode, the second episode that I did, where she's not all pissed off. She's pissed off maybe slightly in that episode, but then she does more, and there's character development. And I always like when there's character development, when you start off one way and then throughout the episode you change your tune. uh, we have this character development. It was Janeway in this episode, and some of the other characters. So they run into B'Elanna. And B'Elanna, says something about them being stranded, and Chakotay is like, look, I've never lied to you before, and I'm not lying now. We need your help. We need, this is. He tells them about the phenomenon and all. So he convinces her to help, Then they go to the mess hall, and there's a bunch of bodies there with blankets over them, and Tom Paris is there. So this is a period like right after this thing happened, this anomaly happened, and Janeway asked Tom what's going on, and he's like, well, they have radiation sickness, and we don't have the doctor. We can't access the doctor, and I'm just a medic, and blah blah blah. And Tuvok is there, and she's like, goes up to Tuvok, and he's dying, and he does a live long and prosper, and says that she was like his greatest friend and all this stuff. And then that's okay. So I messed up. So that's when they have the turbo lift discussion, because after seeing Tuvok died, who's like her friend, she's like, I can't do this. But then, that's where he has that, you can't change the timeline, that quote and all that stuff. Then they go back to engineering, and Seska's still there, and this time she believes him, but then she realizes that he's from the future, which means they were able to take back the ship. So she kind of and before they go to engineering, they talk about, after they have the speech on the turbo lift, that she's like, I'm back in. She because she says something like, do you always lecture me like this? And he's like, I always let you have the last word. And so she says, okay, well, let's do this. So then she's back on board with the plan, and but she's like, we need to have a backup plan in case something goes wrong. So then Seska realizes that he is from the future, and they took back the ship, so she tells him to get away from that console, because at first he's trying to help, they're trying to work together. And then she's getting ready. The Kazon are like, they have their phasers, and they're getting ready to fire on him, because she's like, kill him. And he's like trying to plead for his life. And then at that time, you see above, Tom Paris and Harry Kim jump down. They've been inoculated with the serum, and they fight off the Kazon. And then Seska takes Janeway hostage, and she's like trying, I'm going to take back this ship, And at that same time, Seven walks in, and she has her Borg, she's all Borgified at this point. So she fires at Seven, but Seven has like the force field that the Borg have, and was able to deflect the phaser, and basically beats up Seska. And then Janeway tells everybody to go back to where they were, because if they're in the wrong timeline, then it's not gonna work. And then it's just Janeway and Chakotay, and she's like, you seem to know a lot about me. I just have one question, and it's not about like the timeline, but were we more than friends? And he's like, "Oh no, that line never got crossed." So then everything goes back to normal, and he's got a very short window of time before that lightning strike happens again, and he has to do something with the deflector. So he tells B'Elanna, because he's back in the engineering, so he tells B'Elanna, do this and this and this, and she's like, why? And she's like, you ever heard of a lightning rod? You're going to need one in a few seconds. So she does what he says, and it shorts out the deflector, but no harm, no foul, really. And it's a reset button. And that's, people complain about reset buttons on time travel shows, and what do you expect? The only time I would say that the reset button lasted a little bit longer than you would expect is in 12 Monkeys. And it was the series. It was very suspenseful because you didn't know if they're going to go get things back to normal or not until towards the end, and sometimes it would last, like a whole season, and then into the next season you're like, oh shit, like we're not getting back to where we need to be, and certain people, and then they would show, a character that you had not forgot about but you hadn't seen in a while would show up, and it's like their older self, and you're like, holy fuck, what the, it was pretty mind-blowing watching that shit. And at the time, I kind of probably should go back. If you haven't seen 12 Monkeys, the series, which is written by Terry Matalas, who wrote Picard Season 3 and worked on Enterprise, go watch it. Highly recommend. So then they have this dinner that Janeway and Chakotay were supposed to have in the beginning, and she's asking him questions, and he's like, I can't tell you. It's the temporal prime directive. I can't tell you. And then she says something like, about wine that he has, or the whatever, the wine, and he's like, how do you know about that? And she's, oh, I can't tell you. It's the temporal prime directive. So I guess she's just joking, or she actually had a adventure too. So I would say this is another 7.5 for me. Why I wanted to say 8, but then I'm thinking of like other episodes that are really, really good, like Year of Hell, which is probably like a 9, or that's probably one of the best ones. Or there's another episode where Harry, Seven, and the Doctor are captured by people that don't like holograms. So they have to hide the Doctor, and the Doctor hides inside of Seven's coracle node, and she actually mimics the Doctor. Like Jerry Ryan does mimics the Doctor like almost, I mean, perfectly. It's pretty funny. It's a good episode. That would be more closer to an 8 for me. So let's go back out in the chat for a sec, see what people are saying. We're just hanging out. They look good. Nice choice. Gotta be better than blurry. Oh yeah, the glasses. That was from an episode of MASH, from when Hawkeye went crazy. His friend tried to drown him, and it was a repressed memory. What's from a episode of MASH? The one that I remember is Hawkeye thinks he's holding a chicken and it's a baby, and he kills the baby thinking it's a chicken because they're about to get caught by the commies. That one stands out to me. Darren M says nice, and DJ Play Nice says perfecto. You got it right twice. Oh, the rating, I guess. Okay, cool. Thanks. All right, folks. That time of the night where fate intervenes with my plans and probably gives me another frickin' Voyager episode to watch. And again, with the messing with my phone at night and accidentally pressing the random button, so it is another Voyager, but I'm gonna redo it. It's not on the one. It should be on this one, and it's not. Where did I saw some spin it, yeah. So let's spin it. TOS, the Ultimate Computer. Good episode. That's and Sunday when this current episode got chose, I basically because I've seen it so many times, gave away the whole plot, before I even did this. But if you've seen the Ultimate Computer, you know what it is. It's the original series, episode or season 2, episode 24. And it's a Kirk, logic breaks the computer. But it's a well-known one. No, it's TOS, not TNG. Positive Mojo time. Okay. Anyway, just want to thank Darren M, DJ Play Nice, and who else? Gavin Blackburn for showing up. And I want to thank everybody else that's, if you're lurking or you're listening in the future, thank you for stopping by. I'm the Dead Man, and this is the Red Hour, and I will be back Sunday night, 8 p.m. Have a good night, everybody. And I'm going to say it again, hit the like, and if you haven't already, and subscribe if you haven't already. I don't like saying that. I think it's so stupid because everybody knows that shit by now. But I'll say it again just because. I don't know. Bye-bye.